Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're getting into something really foundational for trust in the technology that pretty much runs everything these days. IT audit and assurance.
Yeah, it's basically the process that helps us feel confident that technology is doing what it's supposed to be doing safely and effectively.
And a major player setting the standards here is ISACA, the Information Systems Audit and Control Association. We're looking specifically at their IT audit framework, or ITF.
That's right. And for this deep dive, we're zeroing in on what you might call a cornerstone principle within that framework. It's really vital for anyone who performs IT audits or, frankly, anyone who relies on them.
Okay, so what are we focusing on exactly?
We're looking at General Standard 1005, which is titled Due Professional Care, and also its partner, the General Guidelines 2005.
Do professional care. Sounds important.
It really is. Our aim here is to unpack what that phrase actually means in practice and why it's so incredibly crucial for making sure IT audits are, reliable and trustworthy.
Got it. So if you've ever wondered what goes into making an IT audit something you can actually depend on, this is definitely for you. We're talking about the core duties and the mindset of an IT auditor. Let's start with that General Standard of 1005. You mentioned it ties into ISACA's Code of Professional Ethics.
Yes, exactly. It stems right from there. The standard itself is pretty clear, actually.
Yeah.
The core idea is that auditors must exercise due diligence and professional care. Always.
Okay, due diligence and professional care. That sounds foundational, like a baseline. But what does that really look like? How does an auditor actually do that?
Well, the standard gives us some pointers. It talks about maintaining high standards of conduct and character, consistently high.
So acting professionally.
Yes, but it's more than just manners. It's about integrity in everything you do professionally, avoiding anything that can make you look bad, or worse, make the whole IT audit profession look bad. People have to trust the process.
Absolutely. Trust is everything here. And didn't the standard also mention something about handling information? Sensitive stuff?
Spot on. Auditors see a lot of confidential data, right? So Standard 1005 is very explicit.
Yeah.
Maintain privacy, maintain confidentiality.
Okay.
And crucially, it forbids using any of that information for personal gain or sharing it without proper legal authority. It really underscores the ethical weight on an IT auditor's shoulders.
Right. So that sets the ethical stage. Now, let's get into the General Guidelines 2005. You said these add more detail, more practical advice.
Exactly. The guidelines are where we get the nitty-gritty interpretation of due professional care. And one of the first big points they make is that it means reasonable care and competence.
Reasonable care. What does reasonable mean here?
That's key. It doesn't mean auditors have to be infallible, like superheroes who never make mistakes.
Yeah.
It's not about extraordinary performance.
Okay.
It's about acting the way a reasonably prudent and competent IT auditor would act in a similar situation. It's a benchmark based on professional norms.
Right. Reasonable care and competence,
Right.
a practical standard. So how does that play out in the actual audit work?
Guideline 2005.2 talks about professional skepticism and competency. This is really central. Yes.
Okay.
It emphasizes approaching the work with professional skepticism, plus diligence, integrity, and just genuine care. And this isn't just for certain tasks, it's throughout the entire engagement.
Professional skepticism. So it's like, don't just take things at face value.
Yeah.
Always questioning a bit.
Precisely. It means keeping your eyes open for the possibility that things might be wrong.
Yeah.
Misstatements, errors, whether they're accidental or, deliberate.
Okay.
And this guideline also hammers home the need to be competent, actually have the skills and knowledge, and to maintain objectivity and independence.
Independence in thought, but also how it looks to others.
Exactly. Independence in mind and in appearance. Being honest, impartial, totally unbiased is fundamental.
So having the right skills and applying them with that independent questioning mindset,
Mm.
what else falls under this guideline?
Well, it specifically says auditors need to consider potential problems. Things like inefficiencies, misuse of systems or resources, errors, maybe limitations in what they can actually audit.
Scope limitations, right?
Yeah, or even potential incompetence they might observe, conflicts of interest, or, importantly, the possibility of fraud. An auditor exercising due care is actively looking for these things, not just passively receiving information.
It sounds like a very demanding, very active role. And what about keeping up? Tech changes so fast.
That's definitely part of it. The guidelines stress you have to stay informed about and follow the latest professional standards, relevant laws, regulations.
Continuous learning, basically.
It has to be. It's not optional in IT. And of course, doing the audit work diligently, following all those rules, professional, statutory, regulatory, that's non-negotiable.
Okay, so we've got the mindset, the need for ongoing learning. How does do professional care then apply across the actual stages of an audit? I think that's Guideline 2005.3 application.
You got it. And this guideline makes it crystal clear. Do professional care isn't just theory. It has to be applied. Every single step.
Every step. Like what?
Like deciding whether to even take on the audit job in the first place. Then the planning phase, setting the scope and objectives, actually doing the work.
The execution.
Field work, testing.
Right. How you assign resources, what tests you choose, how you perform them, how you evaluate the evidence you find.
Documentation.
Oh, definitely. Documenting your work, forming conclusions, writing the report, and even following up later on any issues found. It covers the whole spectrum.
That's incredibly comprehensive. It touches everything.
Right.
Can you give a specific example of applying due care at one of those stages?
Sure. So during planning, due care means seriously evaluating if the audit team actually has the right skills and competence for this specific audit. You can't just throw any team at it.
Okay.
Or when you find evidence. Due care means asking, is there enough evidence? Is it the right kind of evidence? Is it valid? Is it actually relevant to what we're trying to audit?
And if you rely on, say, a specialist's work, maybe a cyber expert, due care means you have to assess their competence, their integrity, and whether their conclusions seem reasonable. You can't just blindly accept it.
Right. You need a basis for trusting their input. It's like building a chain of verified trust. And I see this guideline links due care to reasonable assurance.
Yes, that's a critical link. Due professional care is really the foundation for providing reasonable assurance in any audit.
And reasonable assurance isn't a 100% guarantee, is it?
No, exactly. Especially in complex IT systems, absolute certainty is often impossible. Reasonable assurance means you've done the audit with enough rigor, following due care, to have a high level of confidence that the information is free from material misstatement.
Material, okay.
And the guideline circles back to ethics here too, serve stakeholder interests lawfully, honestly, maintain high standards, avoid discreditable acts. It's all tied together.
It really is a constant thread. Okay, Guideline 2005.4 is about the life cycle of the engagement. How does that add to the picture?
This one really zooms in on planning. It stresses how crucial, complete, and timely planning done with due professional care, of course, is for making sure you have the needed resources, people, tech, whatever, and can finish the audit on time.
Makes sense. Good planning prevents poor performance.
Pretty much. And it also mentions that the whole team assigned shares a collective responsibility for having the necessary skills and competencies. It's not just one person's job. The team needs the right mix of expertise.
Team competence. Thorough planning vital. All right, next up is 2005.5, communication. How does due care shape how auditors talk to people?
Communication is huge in an audit. You need cooperation, right? So this guideline says auditors need to communicate appropriately, professionally, with the people being audited, with stakeholders.
Everything's running smoothly.
Yeah, to build that cooperation.
Yeah.
It also specifically mentions addressing findings directly to the auditees, the managers responsible for the areas you reviewed.
And what if an auditor feels like things aren't being done right? Maybe standards aren't being followed during the audit itself?
Good question. The guideline says practitioners must document those concerns and communicate them up the chain within the audit function. Get them addressed.
So speak up internally.
Right. And it also reminds auditors again to use due professional care when they communicate the results of their work. Be accurate, be fair, don't mislead anyone.
Transparent, responsible communication. Got it. Moving on to 2005.6, obtaining and managing information. What's the focus here?
Well, audits run on information, don't they? This section starts with the reasonable expectation that management will actually provide the necessary information, appropriate, relevant, timely.
But then the responsibility shifts back to the auditor.
Exactly. It revisits that critical point about confidentiality. Take reasonable steps to protect the privacy of information you get, unless there's a legal requirement to disclose, of course.
And then no personal benefit rule again?
Absolutely. No using it for yourself, no releasing it to unauthorized people. It's strict.
It seems like a balance needing access, but having a duty to protect. Does it mention how to handle the data itself?
Yes, it covers the whole life cycle. Obtaining information, using it, keeping it secure, and eventually disposing of it all needs to follow the organization's policies and, importantly, any applicable laws and regulations.
Okay, covers all the bases. Finally, Guideline 2005.7, Other Considerations. Sounds like a wrap-up.
Yeah, it kind of pulls together some key threads. It reiterates, perform audits with integrity and care, demonstrate you understand the subject matter competence again, maintain that professional skepticism throughout.
Keep questioning.
Always. Protect sensitive information from getting out accidentally or inappropriately. Remember, the goal is reasonable assurance, and the level of testing might vary depending on the audit.
Ugh.
It also specifically mentions considering the use of technology and data analysis in the audit itself and making sure you're competent to use those tools effectively.
Right, auditors need tech skills too.
Definitely. And one last practical point.
Mm-hmm.
Consider the cost versus the benefit of the audit work. Be effective, but also efficient.
So putting it all together, do Professional Care Standard 1005 and Guideline 2005, it's not just one rule. It's this whole package, isn't it? It's about technical skill, yes, but also this critical, skeptical mindset, integrity, careful planning, solid execution, clear communication, protecting data.
That's a great summary. It truly is the bedrock. It's what makes responsible, effective IT auditing possible. Without that strong commitment to do professional care, well, the trust people put in audit results would just evaporate.
And the security of all that sensitive information would be at risk.
Absolutely. And as the guidelines point out, if auditors don't adhere to this, the consequences can be pretty severe. For the organizations involved, sure, but also for the reputation of the entire audit profession. It's a core obligation.
A cornerstone of trust in our digital world, as you said earlier.
Couldn't put it better myself.
Okay, so here's something to maybe leave our listeners thinking about. In this world that depends so much on technology that's constantly changing, how does this standard, this expectation of reasonable care and competence from IT auditors affect your own confidence? Your confidence in the tech you use and in the systems meant to keep it in check. If you want to dig deeper into how IT audits work, we definitely recommend checking out the full ISACA framework. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us today.